This is part one of a training video to set up a survey and collect points. Part two will be shutting down the survey and exporting data using the TSC5 controllers and the R12i rovers. And so if you look to the sides here, we've set up our rover. You want to make sure these are both powered on before you start with the antennas installed. And then on the other side, we have our base. And in reality, these would be on tripods or survey rods, but we're using buckets in a backyard for demonstration purposes. So to start, I go to Trimble Access. I've already set up a project kind of area for this survey. So South Platte, October 2022-1. If you want to set up a new project, you just go to new, type it in. I'll type in test and then enter, create. But I'm gonna back out of this because I guess it just created it, but we're gonna focus on this one that I've already created. And so this is the larger project area if I want to start a new job that day. So I can put multiple survey days within this project. I'm going to go to open. I did a template one for this project, but let's say I'm doing my actual survey. I go to new job, and I'll show you two different ways to do it. If you're starting from scratch, you do create from template. The job name, I like to do the site name. So South Platte dash the date 10/16/22 dash the surveyor's initials. And to do a capital, I'm holding this up key and then pressing the button. So then we want coordinate system. Click here, select from library. Whoops. We don't have a stylus, so a few technical difficulties. The coordinate system, we want worldwide UTM. Zone for the Front Range in eastern Colorado is 13 north. I think my fingers are getting cold and dry. The datum, NAT83 CONUS mole is correct. All this is correct. Geoid model, yes. Geoid model 18. Project height, you just sort of estimate in meters the average height of your sort of study area and then do enter, store. So then units, we want meters for this project. So this should all be fine to leave as the default, except. So layer manager, this is where you can import your template files. So we do want to go in here and we want to browse down here. And so I've already gone in and, whoops. So under projects, I created a separate project with the template files, the CSVs, called South Platte Layers. And there you can choose, right now I have the AOIs and the cross sections loaded, but we'll also have the net points loaded later. Then I have this test file for my backyard. And so now you can see these different layers loaded, but what I want to actually bring into the map screen is this one. So I click on it and make sure it has the check mark and then do accept. And then the rest, feature library, none, Kogo, ground, additional settings off, media file, previous point. That's all correct. So then you can also bring in the settings from a previous job XML file. I showed you how to do create from template. And so I'll do enter, accept. So now I've created the job file. So it's sort of like creating a new Word document or folder in your computer where all of this data is going to go. So all rovers do that step. They set up a new job and they all have the same settings. So now we're going to initialize the survey. One person only will start the base, which I'll show, and then everyone will turn on their rovers, and then I'll show you how to take points. Is our cameraman doing okay, or do we need a break?
Cameraman's doing good.
Okay. So come up here. So at the top here, this is a little different from the TSC3s. We have our bigger project and then our current job. So that's all correct. So I'm gonna go, now that we've created those, we're gonna go into Instrument, GNSS Functions. So first, only one person starts the base. So we're already in base mode, and I do Start Survey. The survey style is, I've already preloaded it, South Platte-LH. And so now and I've already pre-configured everything, so it's talking to each other through Bluetooth. So now to start the base, I set up the point. So I click this little arrow and click Key In. I think my fingers are getting cold and dry. So point name, this one I'm just gonna call base. Code, and that can always be base. Code, I usually give a description, like if it's a brass tablet, call it brass. If it's a piece of rebar, call it rebar. Here I'm just gonna call it bucket. And then if you know the northing easting elevation, you can type those in. Here I don't know, so I'm just gonna click here, so it'll kind of guess, and then we'll run the Opus solution later. So then I do store. And so now these are some of the attributes of the base that I've sort of pre-configured for this survey style, but we can double check them. So antenna height with the, I call it the quad pod, the fancy tripod. That is a height of 1.5 meters, and then the little neck that you add on top is 0.25 meters, so antenna height 1.75 meters for the base is correct. Measured to bottom of quick release, that's correct. Station index 20, correct. Start. So now it's starting the base. So it's going to be collecting all that good satellite data. So now, again, just one person does that step. Now everyone in their GNSS functions goes to rover mode after the base is started. It's connecting to the rover via Bluetooth. And then start survey. Again, same survey style. Base index 20, which we already set up, accept.
Waiting for information from the base.
So it's talking to us, waiting for information from the base. So I think then we just do accept. So now we're back to the measure screen. So now this is a touch screen. So I just clicked the hand print so I could click and drag. So now everything's all synced up and it's running. So there's the base, there's our rover. And then if I zoom out, these blue points are the template points that I preloaded into my Colorado Springs test file that we loaded, one of the preloaded layers. So now while I'm surveying, I probably want to zoom in to 5 or 10 meters, and I just click measure. So now the point name, we want the same naming convention more or less as our job name. So maybe the name of the reach, like reference, or in this case, I'm just in a backyard, so I called it yard, the date, and then initials. And then code, you'll probably have a certain survey convention. In this case, I'll just call it grass. Method, topo point, antenna height, 2 meters, that's correct. These are pre-configured, bottom of quick release, correct, and then I just click measure. and it starts to count down. It takes 3 seconds.
Observation stored.
And it said observation stored, so that means it took a point. So now, if you stay focused on the screen, I'm going to move the rover as if you were doing a real survey. Whoops. Got a good shot of all our crap in our backyard. So now you can see the base is still there. The little X is where we took the previous point, and then the bullseye is where the rover is currently. So now the point code hasn't changed. Nothing has changed in the, oops, I forgot one thing. The point name up here, we should do 0.001, and then it'll count up sequentially from there. And then the code, again, we don't need to change. That describes the sort of terrain you're in. So again, I'm going to do enter, measure. Counts down 3 seconds.
Observation.
So then now it counted up from 1 to 2. So if I want to keep cruising, keep surveying, I just keep going along. A couple other things to note. Up here, this top right, are the point precisions. I've pre-configured it so 10 meter or 10 centimeter or less point precision, it'll take a point. If you see a red X, that means it's not accurate enough. And so sometimes sort of turning the survey rod, making sure the antenna is pointed towards the base can help. Or maybe you're like, you know, under a dense tree or something like that, and you may need to move around slightly. So if I'm just cruising along taking points, you can either continue clicking enter on the screen, or this little button here, you can just click it 2 times.
Observation stored.
Took another point, and then we click again. Took another point.
Stored.
Do one more.
Observation stored.
So once again, our point precisions at the top here are all good. It's been, the point name has been counting up. We haven't needed to change our code. If we did, let's say we went to concrete, and then I would just do enter, and I would start counting again. So we've set up the base, set up our rover, and we've learned how to take points. And so one other thing I'll point out, the handprint you can use to move around and zoom like you would on a touchscreen. This little, the curly arrows, you can also click, and the magnifying glass with the 2 arrows. That'll zoom to your extent, your survey extent, if you get kind of lost. And so with that concludes part 1. Please join us for part 2, shutting down the survey.